start with the flag salute. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to welcome everybody here tonight for attending our board meeting. And at this time, do we have any need for translation? Okay, seeing none, then we will go on to approval of the agenda.
I make a motion to approve the agenda. I second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried. Next, we'll move on to public comment. We have one request from Jake Mendez.
Hi there, I'm Jake Mendez Jr. I'm an activist for the community of Othello and an ACLU of Washington member. I just come before the board and I fully support the construction that's going to be in front of Wajitas. I just want to say that it's a very good idea. I fully support it. However, I just want to discuss the Facebook post regarding some limited commenting that that just kind of felt like it was violating the First Amendment on the school district end of it. And I understand some people may disagree or agree with me. That's fine. And I'm okay with that. It's just that the word joke of someone calling someone a joke, it's not considered offensive. It's not under-defined an offensive language or used as profanity, or it's not violating any Facebook terms of service. So I understand that the situation got handled, the comments were removed, I understand that. However, it shouldn't be where it's not open to the rest of the community who wants to input any comment on the Othello School District Facebook page. And that's just something I just want the community to be aware of, that everyone has the First Amendment rights to comment on a public government and federal entity of a social media. I just want to, address that. But other than that, everything's good. I fully support the construction. I think it's, like I said, it's a good idea. Just keep mindful that, if prayers allowed before football games, you gotta allow other opposing religious views as well, open to all those fields too. And other religions and other ethnicities and backgrounds of any heritages and flags on campus as well. Because campus and flags are also circulating throughout the other school district as well. And it is their constitutional right, their First Amendment rights over everyone here's feelings, amendments to uphold their constitution and have any flag, whether if it be the American flag, pride flag, or a satanic flag, or a Baphomet flag. That is their constitutional right. And it's not the school board to overrule that First Amendment, regardless. Thank you.
Thank you, Jake, for your comments. With that, we will now go to the oath of office. Kelly, could you join him up front?
Put two mics together to work with you. Yeah, I'll try not to stand too close. Maybe I'll just stand back here. I'm just gonna put a camera in Mel's face, so. All right. If you'd repeat after me, I'll paste this out for both of us. I state your name.
I, Kelly Camp,
Do hereby solemnly swear or affirm
do hereby solemnly swear or affirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Washington,
and the Constitution of the State of Washington,
and will faithfully discharge the duties
and will faithfully discharge the duties
of Director of Othello School District Number 147,
of Director of Othello School District Number 147,
Adams County, State of Washington,
Adams County, State of Washington,
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
Welcome to the board.
Kelly, I want to be the first to thank you for stepping up to the plate and showing interest in this position and donating your many hours of time that you're going to be putting in now. Thank you again for joining us. Yep. Okay, next we will go to recognition.
Welcome back from spring break. Welcome, Kelly. It's always fun when we get to recognize student achievement, whether it's in the classroom, on the basketball court, football field, or on the dance floor, as our drill team repeated their state 2A championship performance in hip hop this year. So when they get to do it 2 years in a row, that's even more awesome. I'll invite Anna, Coach Anna, up here, and then all the girls will come on up as well and introduce yourselves, and we'll get a picture together. But I've always been impressed by how hard they work. They get up, they're at the school at 5:30 most mornings, rain, snow, searing heat. They get up and they get it done, and their hard work really pays off. You compare them to other teams that they compete with, and you can see that their hard work really pays off. And they're a lot of fun to hang out with too. And sometime I'll show you the video of them singing karaoke in Moses Lake, a video that they don't know I have, to Justin Bieber's song, I think it was. Anna, you want to come on up and talk about your team here a little bit?
Okay, I do agree. You guys need to all come over here. You guys are the product of some good accomplishments this year, guys. So before we get started, I'm going to let them introduce themselves.
Amory Guzman,
Annalie Vasquez,
America Varela,
Cindy McGarner,
Denise Esquivel,
Jacqueline Gonzalez,
Lizette Vasquez, Jimena Hernandez,
Lori Garza,
Sarah Hernandez,
and Carl Sanchez.
And I'm Anna Martinez, the head coach, and one of my helpers this year, assistant, is
Marisa Martinez.
Wendy Rivera and Alexis Coronado are the other two that were helping me. I didn't prepare a speech because I want to talk from the heart, because I think it's important that these group of kids here are amazing. They're the kind of kids that you want to have on your team. They're the kind of kids that at all the competitions, at the invites that we were invited, they were very well behaved. They represented Othello really, really well. And they also, they did some stuff that in all the years of coaching, this will be my 29th, they've done some amazing stuff. And I'll start with what they started. First of all, we got invited to go to an Eastern Washington game to perform at their basketball halftime of a men's game. And we were there. And they did so amazing that the president of the university actually found her way to us to let us know how she was so thankful and appreciated what a well job they did. And I agree with her. And so I told the kids that that's nice to be able to accomplish, to go to a college and let the president come and find us. She didn't have to do that. So that was number one. Number two, we all start with the competitions. We go and compete at Pasco, 4A school, who are state defenders in the 4A in the hip hop and in the show. They win because they are an amazing group of kids that bring the hardware and they compete in POM. But we got invited and we were competing against 4A schools. Most of them were 4A schools. Othello goes out there to perform, and let me tell you, we had Pasco sweating. We had Pasco audiences, not just from Othello, but from all the other schools. They got a standing ovation from the rest of the crowd and I thought they should have won, but I'm being biased. But anyway, I think we did hear from a couple of people that they were threatened, and that's kind of neat when you have a 4A state placer being threatened by a 2A, and I'll get to that in a little bit. Secondly, we go to a competition in Moses Lake. Once again, we're honored by being mostly 4A schools, and Moses Lake excluded themselves, and so we came back taking first in POM and hip hop. And then we go to districts in Moses Lake. For District 5 and 6, we competed in Moses Lake, and we didn't we competed again. We had some of the, like Sela and Royal, they were in our division, but we ended up beating with our competitors, which is Sela, and anyway, we beat them, and then we were not expecting this. I wasn't, and the kids, I think we were all shocked that they gave a team award who scored the highest score in any of the categories. And I was thinking it's going to be Moses Lake because they had an amazing performance in the military. But when they played the music like they normally do in state, guess whose music was being heard? It wasn't Moses Lake, it was Othello's. And so that was like a wow moment for me, because I was thinking, wow. And then the other thing I didn't mention is our competitions of the very beginning. These kids were scoring high scores from the very beginning, that in all the years that I've coached, never have I seen our scores so high. Then we had one last accomplishment to do, and I told these kids, I challenged them. And they can tell you here that I don't take it easy with them. And we don't practice at 5:30. Just correcting, we practice at 5. And they better be there by 5, because if they're not there by 5, what happens, guys? Yes, they run. So they're there at 5 o'clock. But one thing that I do see in the team that I have kids who do running start. I have kids who have jobs. I have kids who babysit their siblings. I have a lot of things going on in their personal lives, and they are there before 5. I know they don't want to run, but they're still there before 5, and they don't complain, or at least I don't let them complain. But I would tell the kids that, like, our competitors are like Tumwater and Sila. They have studios. Kids that they start dancing when they're young, and then by the time they get to high school, they're ready. Do we have that luxury here? I only have one studio dancer. The rest of them do not. So to me, it's an honor that these kids are amazing, and they have a lot of hard work and heart. And I told them that's what happens in this world, that if you have dedication, hard work pays off. It doesn't matter all the money you can pay on lessons. If you just do it the right way and you work hard, anything is possible. And I challenged them to see if we can win, because Othello's never had 2-time state champions back to back. And guess what they did? They did it. They did it. So anyway, they are amazing, and I am so lucky to be able to coach them and be part of their life. So I don't know. I think I said enough. So did I forget anything, Jenny, Marisa, kids?
Thank you. You did your community proud.
Yes.
It's a great accomplishment. And I'm just curious, how many of you are seniors this year? 5 seniors.
Wow. So
So-
maybe 3-time state champions next year.
You've got a good, we're looking forward to it.
You guys are fantastic. I've followed along on your journey on social media and have been so proud of you. You have a phenomenal coach in Anna, who has been just a pillar in our community and has been such a great coach. She's been coaching since I was a young girl, and I'm old. But she just has been like such a star. And so I hope that you learn as much as you can from her, so that someday you can coach young women like yourselves and be the kind of coach that Anna has been to you in your communities as you grow up. Congratulations on a job well done.
I'm just so very proud. Being that I was there with Anna at the beginning, we know what dedication is, and we know how hard work is, and we know strictness. And I know she is strict, because I know how I was, and we believe in that, but you'll get so far in your life by having those kind of qualities. So congratulations. Really, it's a wonderful accomplishment. Wow.
The other thing I did want to share is that when we went to state, we had like the WIA, Cindy Axis, who's our representative. It's neat when you go to a state and people that have been there for a while, they know us. Like Cindy would come and say, I can hardly wait to see you guys perform. And then I had coaches from the west side that I had no idea who they were, but apparently they knew who we were, coming to tell us that they can hardly wait to see us perform. So for me, I tell these kids that we are out there. Our name is out there. I know I hear it from other people that have family members that live on other parts of our state, and they know about them. So that's why we work as hard as we do, because I tell them that to be proud of something, you can walk with your head up. And I do tell them, and they're here to vouch for me, that I tell them if they give 110% and we don't win, I'm okay with that. I am okay with that. It's when we don't give 110% and we don't win because of that. And so obviously they understand what that means now. Maybe, along the way they're tired of hearing me yelling, I don't know. But anyway, I think they are, that excitement for me personally to see them and their parents, the emotion. It's something that I don't know how to explain except I feel it. And that's exactly, I think, why we do coaching, is for the memories that these kids can, you know, hopefully get out of this.
Great job.
Yeah.
Great job.
Yes.
I know, seriously.
Absolutely.
Do you want a photo bomb? Yeah. Short, you go in the front. Thank you.
Okay, with that, we'll go on to board member discussion. First thing on there is a legislative report. I'll give just a small one. It's getting too close to the end of the legislative session. If a bill hasn't been passed through the House and the Senate by the 12th, that is pretty much a cutoff date. Only bills that are affected by or will affect the budget will be the only ones to progress forward for further discussion. There are still quite a few of them that are WASDA priorities that are still there. There's quite a few public hearings going on this week for those particular ones. The final day of session is actually April 23rd. So there, I went through the list today, and the governor had quite a few that he signed on April 6th, and there was 2 bills there that were pretty much just related to school districts, but it's pretty much the going to affect staff here. One of them was 1015, which was minimum employment standards for paraeducators. And then the other one was 5650, the inflationary increases for K-12 employment. So pretty much sets a base that I understand of 3.7% for an inflationary. And that's what the state will reimburse us more for. It's not out of our pockets, as I understand. Okay? Yeah. Thank you. So that's it for now. There'll probably be a lot more after the session's over. But I don't know how many more of those bills, because they haven't even really started to work on the budget very strong. They still got to get that part done too. Okay. Discussion on the NSBA conference. We will wait for that discussion later during the superintendent's informational items. It's getting that time of year for graduation. So we want to get a commitment tonight, if we can, for several nights that we have coming up. First one would be the scholarship night on May 16th.
I should be able to make that one.
I can make that one too.
Okay.
Just a quick question. Did we decide on like a school board scholarship? Yeah, we haven't got to it yet, but it will in a couple of weeks, right? We'll get the applications. We'll each
Okay.
be assigned a certain amount. We'll go through them, and we'll whittle it down to who's the recipients of our scholarships.
Okay.
So for that event, it would be a need for distributing those to the scholarship recipients. If the board couldn't attend, then certainly we could take the place there. But it's also if anyone just wanted to attend that event and see the community that shows up and provides all those opportunities for our kids.
We may need to announce a public meeting, because I think there will be more than 2 of us there.
Yes. Okay. Next one is OHS graduation, June 2nd.
I'll be
Um,
there.
Count me in for that as of right now.
Okay. And I think, Leah, you said
Yep.
you would, okay.
I'll be there.
We need 2 board members, I believe, to help pass out the diplomas. So I did it last year. I'm going to attend graduation, but I wanted, somebody else could do that.
I'm going to attend.
So is it going to be Director Lemus and Director Prowse that will be supporting the distribution of the diplomas?
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay, the next one is Desert Oasis High School on June 5th.
I'll do that one.
Okay?
I'll be there just attending,
Okay.
but
Kelly, would you like to help support that one? I will not be in town, so.
Right, and I'm on call for the hospital that day, so I may be able to help at the high school, at Othello High School, but I'm on call on the Desert Oasis day. So I would like to attend if I'm not working, but I would not want to commit, just in case.
Okay.
Maybe, Kelly, as it gets a little bit closer, maybe you and I could switch, and I'll do DOHS and you could do
Sure.
the high school.
Yep.
I need to play that by ear a little bit, but
No problem.
tentatively, you can have me down for OHS and DOHS, Marisa. And then Kelly and I will kind of be in contact as it gets closer.
And just want to remind everybody of the Desert Oasis site visit on April 17th.
Do we have a start time for that yet?
It's at 8:15, I thought.
Yeah, 8:15 to 10:15.
Okay.
Okay, there is one thing I want to just bring up under board discussion really quick. And this does deal with the 14th Avenue construction.
Okay.
Ed, thank you very much for the word that you're trying to put out there to let all of our parents know. I actually got to sit down this afternoon and look, and there's a lot of negative comments there, parents upset about this and that. And there was a lot of blame being put on the Othello School District. And I'd just like to let everybody know, this ain't an Othello School District project. This is a City of Othello project. But they are doing it out of one sole reason, and that's the safety of our kids. And I support any project like that for the safety of our kids. And that's, it may inconvenience some people during the day bringing their kids and interrupt their timing and everything else. But for a couple weeks, I hope they could put up with it for the safety of our kids, because in the long run, this project is going to be well worth it. That's been a issue with that crossing. We have over 500 kids a day crossing that. So that's how I just like to say, this has all been done in safety of our kids. Okay. Next, we'll go to student representative reports.
So I was also going to have my rep report be on the NSBA conference, but I'll just keep it really brief because we're going to talk about it later. It was awesome. It was an amazing opportunity. It was absolutely amazing. I honestly can't think of any other time in my life where I had that much fun with adults. Like, I don't know, like I've never had, it was just a great opportunity, and certainly I made amazing memories, ones that I will never forget. And it was just great to have a deeper connection with my fellow board family. So yeah.
I was gonna talk about cookies for convo at elementary schools, and because I want to set that up, but I don't know if we just set it up for sixth graders and fifth graders, or we involve the whole school. How that's gonna work? Because I want to do it, but I don't know up to you guys. Like, what do you guys think would be best in that case?
I think the problem we're going to have is lunch hours are all different for age groups. So at each school there. So
I think what I would recommend as a next step, Gael, is to reach out to Assistant Superintendent Jessica Schenk and let her know about the idea, or set up a meeting where you could come in and share the concept with her. It will require a conversation with the elementary principals so that we could identify those times, and they would have the most insight on which grade levels would be most appropriate and how it would work logistically. So I think that's an appropriate next step, is to reach out to Mrs. Schenk and set that up.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
But we're looking forward to it. We are.
Yes.
Any more from the? Okay, well, next we'll go on to required approval, C1.
I motion to approve required approvals.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? So carried. Now we'll go on to superintendent informational items.
Yeah, I'd like to invite Greg Foltz and Amy Suarez forward to share a little bit about a project that we're undertaking. We're really at the beginning stages of a project around energy efficiency and facility use. But I think it's important. This could be the start of a more significant project. We wanted to give you some early detail as we test the waters with this project.
Good evening. Yeah, I wrote something this time.
Ooh.
A little background first. District staff, maintenance, superintendent, executive team, we're always looking for ways to make our facilities better for our students and more environmentally friendly. In the past, we've done projects that you may or may not have known about, but lighting upgrades, HVAC improvements, and water, lead and water testing. As you're aware, in May of 2019, or maybe not aware, state passed House Bill 1257, which is the Clean Buildings Bill. This bill aims to reduce the carbon footprint of school buildings over 50,000 square feet by creating a data collection system, benchmarking each building's performance, and helping district develop a roadmap to bring buildings that use a lot of energy closer to a current energy standards. The district's been working with benchmarking already and will work towards meeting and exceeding the standards set by House Bill 1257. Amy, Pete, and I just want to give you a quick update on what you will see in the future pertaining to our efforts. We've already done some energy benchmarking and currently working with a large boiler upgrade at Othello High School to be completed this spring. We have contracted with McKinstry Company to help us with input on the data and create the benchmarking as required by this bill. They will also provide recommendations for our next steps for each building and site if needed. And then the big one that Pete's talking about. We've partnered with Johnson Controls to look into a performance-based contracting strategy. This program allows district to upgrade some of their aging infrastructure, such as lighting, HVAC, and building envelopes to save energy. The district would then use the energy savings and operational savings to pay for the project. This may be presented to you later on if this moves forward. So we just wanted to give you that update, see if you have any questions for us.
What kind of are you talking about indoor lighting? Because I know, I've noticed all the wonderful outdoor lighting you guys have done on the schools, and that's really
Indoor and outdoor. Yeah,
Okay.
we did the high school about 8 years ago. Exterior, Lutakaga, Hiawatha, McFarland's been done. We were looking at doing Scootney and Wahitas in the future. We already have proposals to do it, but this large upgrade would be interior lighting
Okay.
and include exterior as well.
Is it mostly like LED?
Yeah,
Okay.
upgrade from fluorescence to LED.
Okay, those are,
So it would be
Right,
like
right.
an update of bulbs, not necessarily the housing? Or are you thinking a whole new light fixture?
Depends on what's more cost effective. So it could be typically lamps, bulbs you plant in the ground.
can you see comparison from like a school that you've done some work with compared electricity-wise? Is there,
The data is tough right now
Okay.
because of COVID.
okay,
We've input the last 3 years into this benchmarking tool, and we wish we could get more data and go back a couple more years because COVID just it makes we have difference in usages, difference in pricing
True,
has changed a lot. So
yeah, and the kids weren't in school, so
Kids weren't in
definitely I
school.
see that, yeah.
Yep.
Well, what you have done is great. I love to drive down and see the brightness, especially when kids are coming to and from on the school's evenings. It's really important.
yeah,
Safety.
we as a
Safety.
district have chose to keep the lighting on all night to help with camera usage and keep
Yes.
things lit up. Where when it comes to energy savings, that's not always chosen. Some schools choose to shut them off at a certain time for a few hours. So
Well, those are some things you just have to.
you have to
yeah,
balance
You
it.
have to balance
Yeah.
it right, absolutely.
Yep.
Thank you.
Just wanted to share a couple items before Greg and Amy step away. One is that I appreciate the partnership of this project between the two of them. Greg certainly has the facilities and sort of mechanical expertise about how our buildings operate. And then when these folks from the outside who have similar skill sets say, and we'll save you this much money, that's where Amy steps in and says, really? And so we try and make sure that they both are able to bring their expertise to the
Yes.
project. And really where we're at right now is we've had an initial meeting. I think the three of us and a couple other individuals met with Johnson Controls. They submitted a proposal, but we're 2 or 3 steps away from any significant investment. It really is them coming in and saying, here's what we can do for you, here's what we could save you, and here's the benefit to your students and staff by enhanced facilities to meet the guidelines in the legislation. And it may turn in that we don't use this company. We may go a different direction. We may get there on our own. Legislation may change, those kind of things. But we wanted you to be aware of the project and that they'll be on site evaluating our facilities. And for those of you who have been to states where they rate restaurants, A to F on cleanliness, and the health department comes in and they post it on the wall right when you walk in, like this restaurant got an A rating. They do that for buildings as well in those kinds of states and says, for energy efficiency, you live in an A building. And some folks make decisions based on where they will live and perhaps how their rent is controlled based on those factors. So certainly going to be an issue for us in the state of Washington based on the legislation.
Yeah.
Are there schools that use solar panels? I mean, I don't know. I don't have that in my home, but I mean, I don't know if it's really efficient, but.
Yes, there is.
Oh, there
And
are?
that's part of the House bill is you have to get an energy standard number and be under that. And you have to get under that by saving energy or producing your own with solar panels or wind. So that's definitely something that's going to have to be looked at in the future if we're going to meet requirements.
Okay.
I can say, I have the numbers right here. Preliminary numbers, we're doing really good. I was at a training here 2 weeks ago at Leavenworth with other maintenance directors from around the state. And just because it's a new building doesn't mean you're going to meet the energy requirements. And we only have 2 buildings so far that show that we might have to do something. And we're still refining these numbers. Of course, COVID's in it and stuff. So we're doing really well for what we've got. So
Okay, good. Great, thank you.
Maybe we could put in an 80-acre wind farm.
Seriously. I think I know a place.
Well, thank you for that introduction to the board. I'm going to jump into the next item on superintendent informational items. It's a discussion around the NSBA experience. I just wanted to comment on Jaden's statement about, she had an enjoyable time with a group of adults, which was a new experience for her. And I wanted to, now this isn't part of the kind of what we learned there from the experts, but I guess would say how impressed I was with you two. and your level of responsibility and engagement and participation. And you know, oftentimes as a principal and a teacher, what I heard from parents, they talked about grades a bit, but they wanted to know if they had good kids. And they say that with a whole lot of confidence. We have really good kids on this board, and I was impressed with how you all behaved at the conference, and again, your level of participation. So I wanted to acknowledge that tonight. I'm going to jump right into the slides and talk about 4 or 5 of the sessions. This one was on board self-assessment and self-evaluation. I did not attend this session, but I know that a couple of you did, and Marisa did. And talking about this in sort of a plus delta format, I think is appropriate for the entire experience, because that's how we assess ourselves. And one of the deltas that we talked about in this session, and the learning that Marisa shared with me, was this idea of onboarding new members. Dalia just came onto the board. Director Camp, we just brought her on today, and she's had some experiences with either with me or Marisa about how things are working. But in listening in that session, some takeaways for us, where we need to improve that. We need to enhance that. And with elections coming up in November, it might be a good time to think about how we manage onboarding. One of the other pieces around that presentation that I thought was important were why we make this investment as a team, that really we are a team. And so I wondered if any of the board members who attended that session had any items they wanted to share about that experience.
I was at that one too, and I was surprised to see how many boards still have very long meetings. And kind of going through it, I go, we're really fortunate. We've made the right moves to not just shorten our meetings, but getting the business done that we need to within the district.
Yeah, I had a very similar note on this slide, Ken. I appreciate you sharing that. It was around policy governance, and that was the structure that was used for a number of years. But really the need around a governance team doesn't change. There's still the same principles, and we've been able, over the last couple of years, to, I think, land at a place where the meetings are an appropriate length. We cover the content, we share with the community, and give them opportunity to share with us, and it's working well. I thought this slide as well was a really good example of what many of you, at least Sharon, Ken, and Lindsay.
Maybe we are Karen when
yeah,
you put the 3 of us
yeah.
together.
What we dealt with during COVID. If you think of that as the governance team at the top of that image, and all the pitfalls and danger below us if we didn't stick together. And that was a very, very difficult time. And I think this image plays out in other contexts as well. If we get at a space where it might not always be a 5-0 vote. You might not always ask my opinion. I might not always be in agreement with where you're going. But if we're pulling against each other, that's when we get into issues. And so I appreciated this visual, because that's not how it feels for the district, and I don't believe that's how it feels for the board. And then when we're all pulling the same direction, we can make good things happen for students.
I actually do have something to say about that, or about that session. And I say this about just the whole conference itself, is I felt that we're doing a dang good job. Because there was some members there that when, they said, do you have any questions? There was a lot of board members there that were just like, how do you gain trust, with your fellow board member? Or how do you build confidence in them, that they're not just coming in with an agenda, or, that it's always splitting and just bumping heads. And so for me, that just made me feel really good and confident about where we all stand, and that we're a really good working board, and that's how I felt. So that's just something that I took away from that session itself.
I will say, I've been to WASDA and SBA before, where we were the ones asking those questions in the meetings. And we were saying, how do we get past this? How do we become a team? How do we get on the same page? How do we build trust with our superintendent? We have, like in any relationship, put in the work. And the work is continual. It's not just like we fell in love and now the work is over. It's we've put in the work to make it work. And a relationship I tell this to my husband all the time, like, that's an action word. You have to put action into this relationship and working together. And when you care about somebody, you're less likely to treat them in a way that's disrespectful or, you value their opinion. And I feel like as a board, I look forward to, Kelly, to bring you into that and to get to know you better, because we've put in the work to get there with each other. And I think it's fair to say that, we weren't at that place 3 years ago. And with Pete's leadership in kind of guiding us and going to these conferences and working on ourselves and working on our team, we're not the ones in the room asking those questions, but we were. And I think that does deserve a pat on the back for the work that we've done with each other and the relationships that we have built, because I never want to go back to that picture and feeling like this tug of war and stuff. So even if it's not, a 5-0 vote, even if it is a difficult decision or whatever, it's made, with respect that we feel differently, but I still respect you as a human being and as someone who I work with. And even just like Pete said, even if it's, we're going a direction that I don't personally think is right, I'm still on the team and we're still doing it. But so yeah, kudos to us, because we've come a long ways with the help of Pete really guiding us.
And I think that's one of the experiences at a conference like this, is you get to hear from folks who do similar work in different parts of the country. And you get to nod your head and say, yeah, we're okay in that area. And then you learn some others. And I think this last slide about this particular session is important for us, because we do have a couple of new board members. We are in some transition. We do have, elections coming up. And we have a board retreat coming up. And so I think it might be a good time for us to think about, okay, what's next? How do we maintain the momentum? What do we bring next to our work? So thinking from the Delta side, those are things we'll consider around onboarding, and then again, how the retreat will work. And I think an interesting comment that you made, Director Prowse, about a self-assessment and thinking about where we're at as a governance team, that comes from self-awareness. And that's where the work has been for all of us, to think about, okay, what do I really believe? And if I believe that, how can I get on board with where we're headed and what we're working on? And how do we hold each other accountable? Hey, you said you were going to do this. I haven't seen it. When is it coming? That kind of activity has felt very natural for us. And so anyway, the next session was focused on student reps. And so I would hope that in the next few slides to hear from Jaden and Gael both. I know they attended this session with Marisa, and they heard from some individuals from Prince George's Public Schools in Maryland. And we were leaving, I think, for lunch after this session. And like 25 minutes after the session's over, Jaden and Gael hadn't left yet. They were talking to these student reps. And made some strong connections with them. So I was hoping that each of you might share about that experience and what you thought about it.
Oh, man. Okay, so these three are absolutely amazing. The commitment that they put into being on the school board. They are not just student reps. They are members of the board. They have full voting rights on the board. They're able to go into closed sessions. They are members of the board. Wow. And I feel like I'm a member of the board, and I love these guys so much. Yeah, I look up to them. Like, kudos to them. Their board meetings are so long. They're like 6-hour board meetings.
From 4 to 10?
From 4 to 10. 6-hour board meetings every Tuesday.
And they visit schools every week?
Every week. There's a school. There's a site visit. They
do half days as well?
Half days of school, because they have to focus on school board.
Are there students representing over 100,000 students?
Yep, 100,000 students.
That's a lot of students.
And weren't some of them freshmen?
There was
No, there was an 8th grader in there, but he was in the audience.
Yeah, he was.
These were all seniors. These were all seniors.
Yeah, these guys were all
Yeah,
seniors.
they were all seniors.
It was crazy. It was crazy to me because they were like, "Oh, how old are you? 16. What? You're crazy."
I didn't even know student reps having voting power was a thing on the board. They were just like, your board doesn't have voting power for you guys. I was like, I didn't know it was a thing.
I didn't know.
I think there's a few across the country that have that. I've heard that before at NSBA. It's not many, but I
Mhm.
think there's a few.
Yeah.
I think Pete said that it was like state, like
Yeah.
each state.
Yeah, we had a conversation, because right after the session, when I was irritated that we were going to be late for lunch, they threw out the schedule. As we're walking to wherever we're going to be late to, Jaden and Gael say, hey, we need to be in executive sessions and we need to vote. And so I said, take a deep breath. And so we talked about it at lunch, about some of the requirements that vary across the country, and that, in a place like Prince George's County where they have 200 schools, you would have to be in a school every week to even get close to being able to feel like you're listening to everyone involved. But what I appreciated about their excitement after the event was that they heard this session was led by kids. It wasn't led by the adults. And that our kids were there in the game, being able to talk about it. And when you hear an idea from someone across the country in a system that large, and what I think they have done, which is really exciting, is to say, well, how does that work for us? How does that fit in our context? And that's what you hope people who you invest in to go to a conference like this do. That's what we would want our teachers to do. Go listen to folks and then come back and try it in your space. And so I really appreciated their excitement around it. And the things that they learned, and then I told them they can't be an executive session and they could be an advisory board, but they never. The other piece of that session that I thought was of note for us, when I talked about Gael and Jaden and their ability to not only represent the students to the board and to the community, but that it works the other way, and that I don't have any fear that these two are going to embarrass the Othello School District. If we had an opportunity to present at a conference like this, I would be so confident that they're going to be prepared, they're going to be polite, they're going to be professional, they're going to be good representatives of the Othello School District. And so I think that arrow about them going both directions is a unique challenge for them, and that you don't have, right? You're dealing with adults and rarely get down to the student level, but for them it's living in both those worlds. And that their interest in taking on the responsibility of having to vote and be in closed sessions would even intensify that even more. So I appreciate their confidence around that. The last piece is there's this pre-assessment idea that was shared, and so I thought about our school district and where we're at. And certainly we try to keep our conversations focused on kids. We have recognition that is focused on their work and acknowledging their excellence. We try to involve students in our decision making. Strategic planning is going to be a significant part of this. I think this is a really good place to be when we launch into strategic planning. This understanding that it's got to be a student-driven plan, not a superintendent-driven plan, not a board-driven plan, not a teacher-driven plan. We're all going to have voice in that, but it really is a student-driven plan. And so I'm looking forward to that conversation and appreciated the learning around that. The next piece is around mental health in rural communities. And this was a session that I think the student reps went to, right? Do you want to kick off this conversation?
I'm trying to remember about this one because the one that hit me most was that student rep one. I'm trying to remember I think they asked us a question. Is that the one where they asked us a question in the beginning and I had to answer it? I believe they asked us what a student needs to be ready to learn. And I was sitting in the front, so I had to answer. They gave me the microphone. And I just said that a student needed to have a safe and comfortable learning environment. And this lady in the back was like, there's only one right answer for this, and it's the student needs to show up, no excuses. And I kind of felt some offense to that, because her saying that was the only right answer. Me as a student, if I don't feel comfortable and safe in my learning environment, I'm not gonna show up. It's just as simple as that. and I don't know. I don't know why I felt offended from that comment, and I just had to respond in that way, and that's kind of what I took out from that session.
One of the, I think, interesting things about is this on still? Yeah. One of the interesting things about our community and this idea that we might feel rural, and compared to a place like Prince George's County, there's certainly a difference there. But in most educational research circles, Othello would not qualify as a rural space. We're too close to the Tri-Cities. We're too close to Spokane. We're too close to a community college campus. We have way too many students to be considered rural in most. This kind of activity is typically focused on school districts with 500 students, 100 miles from higher education. There are some factors that they use to define rural communities, but we know that we have some underserved populations in our community, and I think that's where this fits in. Around this idea about what we offer, and this was the description of the folks who led the session, what I took away from this are some of the really exciting things we have happening in Othello around our partnership with CBHA for our students and parents to access mental health supports. I'm excited about the state of Washington passing through additional funding, and for us this next year that turns into an additional counselor at McFarland Middle School. And then the parent engagement activities that are happening at all our campuses, from high school down to the elementaries. There are nights throughout the school year where we're trying to engage with parents to make sure that their kids get what they need. And I think they summed it up nicely in this slide here, which was, not that one. How do we get more mental health access? How do we get more people engaged in the work? How do we make sure it's available on our school campuses, or the school is able to link our students with those mental health services? And how do we make sure kids feel okay about that? There's no stigma in asking for help. And I think that those things, that proactive response that school districts across the country are trying to have to what occurred during COVID, we're working with that. I think Jaden shared a couple of stories when we were in the vehicle talking about what COVID meant to her, and how she had to disconnect from being around people because of making sure that she was protecting the people that lived in her house. And that it was also came about at the time that she was able to have access to a phone pretty consistently, and how that impacted her own processing and thinking. And I thought that was a really good example for me of what all our kids are dealing with, and that there's some really good work happening in Othello around mental health opportunities for kids. This next session was not focused on students so much. This was one that I went to, and it was around educator retention in Kansas. And in Kansas, they did this large project on how teachers felt about their work. And so you can see some of the numbers here and things that impact us in Othello. There are too few teacher candidates out there. That is true across the country. And as more folks begin to retire, it's going to continue to be an issue. Filling our non-teaching positions. We have positions that we know we need bus drivers. We know we need those support folks, and those have continued to be a challenge to fill, but it's not just here. And then the last one about what was occurring in Kansas is that how quickly the vacancies have increased. And that's not just from retirement, but it's also from some of the societal pressures around public ed. And what they discovered in this research is there were really 7 factors that affected employees being engaged and sticking around and doing the hard work. And that was around how do we support social emotional health, not only of our students, but of our staff? Do they get good training at work? What's the vision of the board and the leadership? So that would be our governance team. Their salary, those kinds of things. These are the 7 factors that came out of the research. And when I think about the pluses for the Othello School District, I certainly have been impressed with Assistant Superintendent Shink's work around organizing professional development for this summer. It's been really well received by our Teachers Association, so we're looking forward to some improvements in that area. Strategic planning is going to really help us develop the vision for all of us and for the system. I think we'll be ticking that box off. We certainly have a competitive contract, not only for districts across the country, but in the state of Washington. Sandra Villarreal's done an excellent job in making sure we have an adequate sub pool. If you look at that second one from the bottom, a driving factor for folks was whether or not they could feel okay taking a sick day. Are they going to have a qualified substitute? And so Sandra's efforts in leading that work, I think, should be commended. And then also the last piece about do you have enough planning time? And I think the community's commitment and the board's commitment for the last 2 decades around PLC time is really important. And so there's, I think, some good examples of this work happening in Othello. This next slide talks about what can we focus on and think about. And I'm just going to talk about the left-hand box, upper left. And that's the role of the principal and how important it is that we have skilled principals who not only can lead instruction, but can lead people and make sure that those folks feel engaged in the work, as they're a lot less likely to leave the system, a lot less likely. And I'm encouraged by the work that we've been pouring into supporting our principals. The last one is just really around what are some next steps for us. So think about this as a Delta slide. We've talked a little bit about going with our associations to some shared experiences and learnings around negotiations and bargaining. So I think that's a good next step for us. And then again, the strategic planning piece that will help us define where the system is headed next. The next two are focused primarily on safety. And this one was a presentation by a gentleman named Ken Trump. And it was one that Lindsay and Thalia and I, all of us attended. And he shared some information about the statistics across the country and really some things we can focus on. What I appreciated in these sessions, and I would love to hear from Lindsay and Thalia, was a number of the things I'd heard from Greg Foltz along the way. I'd heard him share in his learning over the last several years how he thinks about being prepared as a system. And so I was encouraged by that, and I will identify a couple of those. But I wondered if Thalia and Lindsay had any items they wanted to share from that session.
One thing that kind of stuck out to me was he started in his first half an hour was really just him talking about his credentials. I wanted him to get in the meat and potatoes faster because we only have so much time with him, and he clearly knew what he was doing and works across the country. But he basically said the mistakes fall when people get lazy, right? It's not that the door latch was broken or that the simple fixes. It's when human error about propping a door open, not locking the door, things that we as human beings do to make our lives a little bit more convenient, versus what is your policy and what is your actual procedure. I thought about that even in my own life. What do I say I'm going to do? What do I actually do? So that was a big takeaway for me. It was what do we say we're going to do in this school to provide safety to our kids versus what we actually do? Where are we rating ourselves? And he said his motto is, see ya when they sue ya. Because if you don't do these steps to keep your schools safe and something happens, you're going to get sued. So I will come and testify when they sue your district. I don't want to be a see you when they sue you situation here at OSD. So I know that that's something that we've been talking about as a board. Is where are we at with our safety? What are we doing versus what we say we're doing? What kind of human errors can we really try to prevent from happening as far as, and he gave a list. It's not just Othello. He gave multiple examples of different campuses that he visited where he told them exactly what to do. And then when he would come back for a follow-up, there's a sign right next to the door that says under no circumstances can you prop open this door. Please save lives. And they have a towel at the bottom of the door with the door propped open because it was a delivery door for, their maintenance guys or for the kitchen or something. But human error, right? The door's locked, but he's got it propped open, so when the people come to deliver, it's easy. So that was a big takeaway for me was, human error and what are we doing as a community, as a district. And another big thing that we talked about in this that I took away was, sometimes people want to make it about gun laws and about different things, but really it's about connection. And we've talked about this multiple times. When you have an impact on a student and you have a relationship, that student is so much less likely to enact violence. When there's no connection or there's anger, resentment, all of these other things. So I think as a district, we're trying really, really hard to do the number one thing, which is connection, a sense of belonging, these relationships. But we're definitely, like everyone else in the country, not doing everything that we possibly could to prevent a see you when they sue you situation.
For me, I wrote a lot of notes actually, but one of the notes that I have here that he talked about was, don't bring in security measures for political reasons. It's just not sustainable. And just talked about how there's so many school districts that bring in metal detectors and they bring in all these kind of security measures that they do it because the community is talking or because they're getting pressure from somebody. And 2 years later, they rip them out and they spent a lot of money for nothing. Or they find out that they weren't really that effective. And so and he really simply said, lock the doors, lock the doors, make sure they're shut, and we will be fine, and yeah, human error, right? But the other thing that I just questioned myself, and I just wanted to know a little bit is, he talked about human error, right? So what are our teachers, like when we onboard our teachers at the beginning of the school year, do they get a full plan? Like I know that they might receive a procedure of this is what you do in an emergency situation, but is there actual training that is conducted with them on these safety protocols and, okay, this is what you're gonna do during this situation? Do they get a run, hide, fight training? Like how are our teachers prepared? Because it looks like in a lot of different communities, teachers are prepared because they're receiving that adequate training, but then where there has been a situation, there's a lot of teachers that have not been trained properly, and then therefore human error.
Yeah, I have in my notes, number one thing you can have is a well-trained, highly alerted staff.
Yep.
That have the training on how to use the equipment that they have and the empowerment to call the lockdown themselves versus, I see something, this does not feel right, but I'm gonna call the principal to make sure that I'm doing the right thing, versus a highly trained staff that knows exactly what to do when they see something and they have the empowerment to call the lockdown themselves.
In the next couple of board meetings, you should expect a safety report, an update about where we're at with some of these systems. I'll make sure that we add the training component to that so that we can share with you how we do support our staff in making sure that happens. But I appreciate your feedback on that session. I do want to touch on, and also I was commenting on what Greg Foltz has shared over the years around safety, and certainly you echoed a couple of them that I heard there as well. This idea about locking the doors and how important that is for classroom doors to be locked and for our folks to understand the protocols there. And the other piece around policies and procedures matter, but really it comes down to people making the right decisions at the right time. This image here was, I thought, pretty powerful. It talks about this continuum of threats against the school. And if you look on the left-hand side, that might be everyday school activity. These are things that might occur. And the further right you go, the more intense it gets. But oftentimes the sort of media pressure and the community pressures around these kind of events, things that are on the far right-hand side, which these are much more likely to occur and much more frequent. But we get caught up in what they call security theater, and Director Lemus touched on it by saying we make investments in things that go away after a couple of years because it felt like the right thing to do. I think this is a pretty powerful image when it's paired with this one, which is how do you prevent some of those things? And Director Prowse, when she talked about the belonging component, that's the first step. It's climate of the school, prevention programs. It's having skilled teachers who can deal with these issues and principals who know how to manage their school discipline and communicate with parents. How are we dealing with mental health supports to make sure kids get what they need? Staff training that Director Lemus just talked about. Greg's expertise and Tim Taft's expertise about what do we need to purchase and why do we need to purchase it and how do we train up on those things. All of these things happening. There's a reunification activity happening in late June with the city of Othello and that's a full-scale community activity. So many of these things happening in our school district that I think we should be proud of, and we'll give you an update on that in probably not the next meeting, but the meeting after. The last session I'll just go through rather quickly. It was again focused on school safety. I attended this with Ken and with Lindsay. We heard from the federal government this time about some of the components. What I thought was interesting here, though, were some items we really haven't talked a lot about in the Othello School District that are cybersecurity threats and perhaps what role our IT experts here in the district play in making sure that we're protected there. Also, this idea about hoax calls becoming part of what happens in schools. Not really something we've dealt with, but certainly something we should be aware of. This next slide provides ideas for being proactive in preventing violence. And again, you can see at the top of that list, this was a different presentation, but it's a positive school climate, mental health supports, things that we're addressing, and this idea about physical security measures that we'll provide an update on in a couple of weeks. So encouraging news when you hear from experts that we're doing some of those. And then a delta for us to, I think about, and this is not an item I've shared with the team yet, but is a school security assessment tool that is put out and a resource available for us where we can describe a particular school. I imagine these are systems or structures that perhaps Greg has dealt with in the past where you say, it's a 600 student K-6 elementary, this many square feet, this is where it's located, and we have this kind of scenario. Here's what's already in place, and then it'll let you know, hey, you should feel strong. I guess not having seen the system itself, but in my mind it was a sort of rubric. Here's where you are in being prepared for this kind of incident. Here's some things you should consider. And so I wanted to make sure that we share that tool with our team and let them decide whether or not it's something appropriate for our school district. I would just end with that I certainly appreciate the investment of time from the board members. It's not easy to be away from your family. It certainly wasn't an easy travel schedule. And I think it's important that we bring back that information, not only to highlight the good work that's happening here, but to think about what the important next steps are. So I wanted to thank you all for attending that and for arranging the experience for our student reps. Thanks, Ken.
Thank you.
Could I add something real quick? I forgot to mention about the student and parent mental health presentation. They were talking about how parents don't know that they have all this access to all this help. So they had this little medallion and they put it on to school district pages. So I'm trying to get that sorted out so we can have that on our district webpage. So yeah, I just want to let you guys know that. So parents have the resources to help their kids.
Is there any more comments on the NSBA?
I have just one more thing to add. Outside of the great things that you learn in the classes, the things that you learn interacting with people from different states and different walks of life and different board members and things like that, is the opportunity that we have to learn from each other in between the sessions and learn about one another. And it's really been beneficial since I've been on the board to spend the time at these conferences with our student reps and with fellow board members and our superintendent and Marisa, spending that time in between sessions, learning about one another's families and different life stories. And it's just such a great team building experience that I hope moving forward that all board members get different opportunities to go to and be a part of, because not all learning happens just in the classroom. There's a lot of learning that we learn from each other and from the different sessions that we attend. So super beneficial. Yes, travel's grueling and different things, but 10 out of 10 with what I personally got out of it and what I think we as a board walk away from it with. So thank you, Pete and Marisa, for arranging everything and, telling us where to be and what time and all of the scheduling. I know that's a ton of work, and I really, really appreciate it. So thank you so much. Great trip.
For me, I came back really emotional because that was probably by far the best work trip I've been on. I mean, hands down. I usually, I've missed baseball, and I was, a little bit heartbroken leading up to the trip because it's really hard for me to send my kid to baseball when I'm not there. But after being at the conference and getting to be with the school board, Pete, Marisa, the student reps, I was really glad that I did not miss out and that I did take the opportunity to go learn and to just build trust and confidence in each other. And the other thing that I just wanted to say is that I would highly recommend, I'm looking forward to WASDA, and I would highly recommend for Kelly and anybody else who is interested in being on the school board, and if they do come to the school board, to attend a conference like that, because for me, I came back super confident that this is exactly where I'm supposed to be, that I made the right decision to be on the board, and that I want to be here. So I'm just grateful and thankful for the opportunity that I got to go.
For me, I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was a great time. To go to some of the different classes and listen to some of the other districts' problems, you could really tell the districts that we're going through the similar things that we have in the past. And I left there with the feeling that we are on the right path, in a great direction, and we are doing great. We are doing good. We are doing good as a school board. We are doing good as a team with the executive team, and I think we've got some great pathways in front of us for the future. I just really love the connection that's going on amongst us all right now. And I can't say any more about it. Thank you. With that, we'll go to policy review. These are first readings. So between now and next week, if you get a chance to kind of review them a little bit, if you have any concerns, questions about them, you could probably call the district office here, and they'll answer them, or see if there's any other concerns there. They will be at the next meeting for the second reading. Are they starting to come in a little bit quicker now from WASDA, some of the policy reviews? Okay.
That deserves a standing ovation.
Yeah. Okay, we'll go to upcoming events. Of course, the Desert Oasis site visit, April 17th. And then our next regular board meeting on April 24th. Is there anything else to add to that? Okay, now we'll go to board self-assessment of the meeting.
Major plus is that we have a full board. So welcome. Welcome, welcome. We're so happy to have you.
Always enjoy it when we could have student recognition, especially two-time state champs.
Yeah. Great presentation of NSBA. All the slides were really great. Thank you, Pete.
for me, I really appreciate public comment. I truly do. Not a lot of people come to our meetings to speak up, so it's always nice to hear from the public.
Well, it was a very well-planned meeting. And interesting, very
Mhm.
interesting.
I can't think of any deltas. Delta?
No.
10?
Okay. Any more to add to that? Okay, at this time, the board will recess into executive session for 20 minutes to discuss the sale or lease of real estate and the performance of a public employee. No action will be taken following the executive session. And so we'll take a 3-minute recess and meet back in Pete's office.